I might have to leave.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now call to order our November council meeting, and I recognize Councilman Lee Scott for the invocation.
I'm going to ask Reverend Warren, if you would mind, please, sir.
Don't mind.
Pastor Travis Warren's in the house.
Always ready.
Good to have him.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Council, let us pray. Father God, as we come, we thank you for this opportunity to come together and discuss the business of Blackstone. We ask right now, Lord God, that you lead, God, and direct the thoughts, Lord God, and the actions. We pray that your spirit be within the midst tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. We now invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I didn't speak to you.
Hey.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We wish everyone here a safe and happy Thanksgiving. If I were to compare our agenda tonight to a Thanksgiving feast, we have lots of turkey to carve tonight. So I'm going to ask everyone who speaks tonight to be brief with their comments. I do want to mention there's been a lot of concern, understandably, in the business community. I did talk today to some friends of Candy early. Her surgery was a success. I don't know when her discharge date will be, but she did suffer a heart attack last week. For those of us who know Candy, it would take a heart attack to keep her away from the restaurant, and we all wish her the best. At this time, we do have a busy agenda. Any members of council have anything they want to add to the agenda before we get into this tonight?
Oh, closed session?
Yes.
I'd like to add elected officials to the personnel closed session.
Okay, we're not technically employees, but members of council are personnel. Anyone else?
Disposition of real estate.
Disposition of real estate, very good. We will add those to the closed session. And we will get on to our agenda now. We have several advertised public hearings. The first is a conditional rezoning for Waukesha Development with Dave McCormick. Good to see Mr. McCormick here. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation. Mr. Town Manager.
As you may or may not know, the Planning Commission met on a conditional rezoning, not a conditional use permit, but a conditional rezoning. The property in question is 519 Church Street, which is the old town shop. We have a survey of the property that's included in your board packet, and is approximately an L-shaped property. It will encompass all the improvements, and it will be the grassy area in the front of the water tank. The water tank will be retained by the town. There is a lease that has also been advertised and discussed. That lease would include off-street parking on the town property directly behind the Farm Bureau property on College in between 2nd and Church. There has been a public hearing at the Planning Commission level. The recommendation is to conditionally rezone 519 Church Street, and I can read the tax map numbers to you, but I think everybody knows what we're talking about, with two conditions. One of those conditions being no on-street parking permissible on Church Street, and the second is that activities associated with the project cease at 10 p.m., no later.
The recommendation was unanimous.
Oh, College Avenue, excuse me. I said Church Street for the parking. It's College Avenue. She's correct.
Very good. We now will go into public hearing, and the Planning Commission did make a recommendation. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak against the proposal? A lot of times it's easier to start with the negatives first. Anyone to speak against? Seeing and hearing none. Anyone to speak for or to ask a question about the proposal? I see and hear none. I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, staff, what's your pleasure?
I don't see on here where the vote was recorded.
It was 4-0 with
4-0?
one abstention.
Okay, all right.
I do want to read for the public record. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. I did receive a letter from Mr. Lewis Williamson, the president of the Nottaway Farm Bureau, and he basically says we endorse the proposed multi-use of the Old Town Shop. We do express some of the concerns that adjoining property owners expressed at the Planning Commission hearing on October 30th, and those areas of concern are parking, litter, noise, and loitering. The Farm Bureau has made substantial investments in its property on the opposite corner. And basically, the gist of his letter is what I just said. They endorse it. Just concerns. I think anyone who has been to Mr. McCormick's ventures I know some people who were in Bedford this weekend, speaking very highly of your facility there, will say that, Mr. McCormick, if there's an area that has litter, that the amount of litter, what I've seen, decreases, it does not increase, and usually it's eliminated, from what I've seen.
I move to approve of the conditional rezoning for Waukesha development with two stipulations. No on-street parking on College Avenue and that activities cease at 10 p.m.
Okay. Mr. McCure has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. I had one question that came up in the planning commission, and that was, I know there's a future endeavor on the same property for the residential.
That is not covered tonight
That's not, okay.
because the conditional use permit, once it is business general, which is the action you're taking tonight, any kind of residential first floor or second floor would require a conditional use permit, and that's another series of
Okay.
requests. And I think Dave may have some intentions on pursuing that, but I think what we're doing right now is rezoning BG, restaurants and tap room would be a use by right.
Right.
The apartments of the residential would be a use by special exception or conditional use.
Is your anticipation that tonight's vote, if it does go forward, would see the sale of the building close before year end? Or would it be,
Moving forward with closing, I think that, I think there's, I can't say intent to move quickly or rashly.
Right.
But I think we need to move to closing. I mean, we've been through
right,
several public hearings and meetings and such things, and as quickly as Dave wants to move, I think.
We've got all of our ducks in a row ready
Yeah, we just
for
have to
closing.
prepare a deed.
gotcha, okay.
Tessie would have to do title search, prepare deed, and then deliver to his closing agent for closing.
Very good. Mr. Green, you got,
Mr. Manager, what was the proposed hours? 10
I don't
o'clock?
think there were any proposed hours. Dave volunteered the 10 p.m. David
Mr.
said
McCormick did?
we
Okay.
would cease, if I remember correctly from planning commission, the 10 p.m. was from David, not enforced on David.
I
And we
heard,
just
I
codified it.
believe I heard him say like something like 12 to, or 2 to 10 on weekends and maybe, you kind of have a later opening, I believe I heard you say. Of course, the opening doesn't bother anybody. If you want to open at 8 o'clock, I don't think that bothers anybody.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
don't think the opening is anything.
No.
This is just, David said, hey, 10 o'clock is fine with me, moving forward. But I don't think it was, I don't remember it being imposed by the planning commission.
no, just the closing.
You know, this-
Everything we do is close at 10. We don't want to operate, it's not a bar, you know, that stays open until 2 in the morning.
Right.
I have no further questions, Mayor.
We have a motion that's been made and seconded. I'll ask for a I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cornbrook. Good to see you again. We appreciate your patience with us, and thank you for your investment in Blackstone.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We have hearings number 2 and 3 kind of piggyback off each other. We have a hearing to declare surplus. I believe it's 8 acres at the airport?
Up to 8 acres.
Up to 8 acres.
Up to 8 acres.
This is by you, this is, basically, this would set the stage in motion for public hearing number 3 to dispose of those, of up to 8 acres to UAV Pro.
I think we established this procedure, the town did with Tessie's recommendation that first we have a public hearing for the actual surplus of property.
Okay.
Then we have a public hearing for the disposal. What I have in front of you guys, before you start the public
Yep.
hearing, and if anybody needs a copy or wants to look at it, I have an extra if you want to share. The original option, which is enclosed in your board packet, allowed the town and Joe to understand that between 5 to 8 acres of property could be made available. And I believe the airport committee has considered this. There was an option that was renewed back in July, and that is the document that's here attached for you. And it looks like, if you're looking at this, that the 8 acres may not be necessary. If you remember the last council meeting, we talked about a communal or joint stormwater detention basins. The DMV's been working on that, and it looks like the 5 acres is gonna be closer to the necessity than the 8 acres because of the stormwater being on a separate site. We're not selling Joe a stormwater pond, we're selling Joe technically usable property. Okay? And this would be the foundation or the framework, and if anybody in the audience would like to get a copy, this would be the framework for the final deed and the final survey. And it really is gonna dictate, but this is the approximate, and Joe's looked at it, but this will be the approximate situs of the property.
So we'll leave the town of Blackstone with 6.1 acres, minus the retention pond, or the retention pond's in addition to it.
No, I think it's an addition. So you have 6.1, and then we would own a regional stormwater management BMP, best management practice.
And the town sold UAV Pro in, I think it was December 2014, about 5 acres or,
4.9 acres.
okay, for like,
4.9 acres. yes,
okay.
sir.
All right, we'll go into public hearing. This is a hearing on the proposed declaration of the acreage of the airport up to 8 acres of surplus property. Anyone to speak against the proposal? Anyone to speak for the proposal? All right. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, and what is council's pleasure?
I move that we allow Joe to execute his option.
Okay. Well, no, this is just to declare surplus. This is just part one. That's part two. I need a motion to declare the up to 8 acres surplus. Mr. Moncur has moved and Ms. Thompson seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Now hearing number 3. This is the actual hearing on basically, correct me if I'm wrong, when we sold UAV Pro the land in 2014, there was an option for the purchase of up to 8 more acres. Is that correct? He had an option, and he wants to exercise that option.
I don't think it's 2014, I think it was more like 2016.
Oh, okay.
When the second option
Okay.
was drawn up.
Gotcha.
It did expire, or came close to expiring, and in July we executed on July 18th. I think July 1st is actually the expiration of the previous option agreement. And Joe was asked to go ahead and exercise this. I don't believe it's going to be the 8 acres. I believe it's going to be closer to the 5 acres.
Okay.
And purchase price would be $5,700 an acre.
Okay. We'll now go into public hearing. Anyone to speak against the proposed sale of this now surplus property at the airport to UAV Pro? Anyone to speak for the proposed sale? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing.
I move that we approve the sale.
We have a motion made by Mr. Moncur, seconded by Mr. Tucker.
Roll call vote, please, Mr.
Well, before we
Mayor.
get the roll call, but I just have to ask this. I don't want anyone to misinterpret my questions, but this is the people's land. And there have been, years ago, sales that took place where prospects said, we need to buy this much land, and the council gladly sold it to them on the understanding that there was going to be economic development on that acreage. The Rice Corporation is a prime example where there were 14 acres essentially given for future expansion, and that was in 1986, and 31 years later, that acreage it's a lot of grass to cut, but it never did materialize. We're still thankful to have Rice, don't get me wrong. What is being planned for the property? I didn't know if anybody knew, the committee may know. I've not come to committee meetings. More jobs, more employment. And I don't want to divulge company secrets, I just want to.
We're in the planning stages for a expansion to support one of our customers out there.
Okay. More jobs?
I would think it'd be more jobs.
Okay.
I'm hoping 14, 15 additional.
Okay, very good. Very good. I just felt like I had to ask that question.
It's just like the previous project. Our intention is it's in design right now. We've got some sanity checks along the way. We've got to get past DEQ. We've got to get a lot of things done. I can't tell you 100% that everything's perfect, but it's our honest intention to complete the project as quickly as possible, just like it was the first one.
Absolutely. Very good. And when this sale takes place, if it goes through, I know I asked you something, how much acres does the town own after that?
We'll own 1.8 acres, which will be a big pond.
But I thought at one time, didn't we own a total of 31 acres out there?
We did. We'll have 1.8 acres that is a pond.
Okay.
We'll have 6.1 residual industrial acres, close to Route 40.
Okay.
And then the difference is the portion that has the apron and the hangars. And I'm remiss to not know the exact acreage on that, but I would say probably another 5 acres.
Okay, very good.
The 6.1 that's left for the council's benefits the road frontage.
Okay.
It's the valuable property, and it'll be positioned well with the stormwater management taken care of.
Excellent, excellent. We have a motion and a second on the floor, and we want a roll call. A roll call vote has been requested, and let's see, this is November. Whose turn is it?
Is it my turn?
Mr. All right. That motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Allman. Thank you. All right, that completes our public hearings. I believe that leads us into, we have one visitor who signed up, and I believe we have Mr. Wayman Mitchell be number 2, but we have with us tonight Aaron Hawkins of Robertson Farmer Cox Associates. We'll get to, okay, very good. We'll have the 1-2 punch from Spring Hill. That's good.
All right, thank you for having me here this evening. I trust that everyone has a copy of the financial report for FY17. That's what I'm here to present. I'm going to try to be brief, talk a little bit about the audit process, talk about a few pages in the report. First, I'd just like to say great job by all the staff involved here at the town and prepared for us. Treasurer's office here in the town administration. Jennifer does a fantastic job preparing for us, and when we come, we bring many questions, many requests, and it starts when we come in the spring around May. We do a lot of our preliminary type of fieldwork testing, and then we come back again in August and September to sort of audit a lot of the final numbers, and that's how the audit process itself sort of plays out. And then I go back, review work papers with the staff. Paul Lee, who you're familiar with, reviews a lot of the things that I do. And in fact, he was actually out here with us, I believe, for some of the final field work as well still. But he's now sent me to come talk to you guys and answer any questions that you have. And I'm going to get into this report. It's, these days these reports, they're so long and almost kind of hard to read. But I do encourage you to spend some time looking at these things. They do have a lot of good information.
What you talking about, Willis? Hard to, kind of hard to read.
But I always like to say also, when I'm done talking to you here tonight, that's not necessarily the end of the audit process. If you have any questions, if you sit down and you're eating some turkey on Thanksgiving and you're reading this thing and you have some questions, talk to Philip, talk to Jennifer, reach out and talk to me. I'd be glad to answer any questions. But I'm going to get into the report, just talk about a few pages in here that I think are probably the more important pages to go over. And I always start on page 1, which is our audit opinion in the report. And I always say, the rest of these statements, this big financial report really comes from information here in this building. All the policies and procedures, all the numbers come from the accounting system here. But this is our page as auditors to tell you what our opinion is of the financial statements, and it's that we feel that they're materially correct based on the testing that we did here for our field work. It's what we call an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that we can give as auditors. I'm going to take you now to Exhibit 5. And this is in your report. It's for your governmental funds. And I know you're familiar with fund balance as council members, and this is where you sort of see the change in your fund balance for the year. That first column is your general fund, and that's going to show your revenues, your expenditures, and other changes in your fund balances for the year, which you started off the year with about $300,000. It upticked just slightly up to about $315,000. And some folks ask me, what should our fund balance be? And it's not ever an exact answer to that question. I always like to say, strive for getting to at least 10% of your general fund expenditures. That's a good thing to shoot for, which for you guys, you'll see right there is about $4.6 million. I think it'd be great to try to get to that point where you're at 10% of that general fund expenditures.
$500,000, $460.
Yeah. But the town, as you can see here, in great shape. Fund balance went up. As you see later in the report, expenditures were all under appropriations. I thought it was a very sound year for the town. On page 22 is where I'm going to take you next. And this sort of shows you a breakdown. This is within what I call your notes to the financial statements, or not what I call it is your notes to the financial statements. But this note right here shows the breakdown of your various elements of your fund balance. So you've got $315,000 of general fund balance, and this shows you the various places where it's sort of either restricted or assigned, things that are sort of, we're speaking for some of this money, and it leaves you with about $178,000 of unassigned, which would be free at the town's discretion to use as they see fit. The next place I'm going to take you is to page 65, just another good place of information. This shows you how your revenues and your expenditures performed actual versus budget for the year. And I know that's another area that you don't have to be an accountant to be able to sort of see how things are performing. You have a column for your original budget, your final budget, and then your actual. Your Schedule 1 is your revenues, and your Schedule 2 is your expenditures. And it'll show you by department, or by department for expenditures, and by type, by revenue type for your revenues on Schedule 1.
So you on page 65?
Yes, sir, 65. That should be your Schedule 1, which is your revenues, and then Schedule 2, which immediately follows that, is your expenditures.
I just want to make sure I understand something. Staff can probably fill this in, but I always look at our budgeted taxes, like the cigarette tax.
Okay.
And if I read this correctly, I think the town of Blackstone set a record this year in meals tax. We collected $606,000 in meals tax revenue, and we had budgeted around $541, which is good. We budgeted conservatively, but I believe that's a record. Is that not?
Most we collected the revenue.
Yeah, you have some stat tables in the back of this report, but I don't know that they get down into the, basically those things contain like 10 years of data, but I think it's all going to be
Right.
in like the other local taxes. So we can figure it out.
Well, I don't own any stock in restaurants, but the reason I look at that is because I think that tells me that it's a sign that maybe when people eat out, when the economy's, they don't eat out if they're broke usually, not most people. But I also look at now look at the cigarette taxes. One time we thought we might get 45,000 a year. I think we budgeted 100 and we actually got 90,000 again. Not bad. We didn't do as well as we'd budgeted, but we still did okay. And then I just want to make sure I was reading that correctly.
No, that's on this page. That's probably on this page one of the most easy things to identify. I mean, the fact that you collected $65,000 more in meals tax than what you anticipated.
This may be a question for our treasurer, but I was looking under property taxes, and we're in the whole 22,000. Is that just because it hadn't been collected yet, or is it still hope to get that?
On personal property taxes, it's either that or there's also, you'll see there was a budget appropriation there too. Like you started off with 82, and then the cause of whatever that appropriation may have been, I'm not sure, but it went from 82 to 110. You collected 88.
Yeah.
I will take you to a table here soon that sort of shows you the percentage of your tax collections too.
Why in the world do we budget? Because I know we usually do conservative budgeting. If we budget, we
You would think that'd be a pretty firm number.
yeah, our
I
anticipation.
don't know what caused the appropriation to go from 82,000.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want to go back and look, but there was something that adjusted.
I mean, are we having that many unpaid taxes? Is, a concern.
Well, no, we actually grew.
No.
6,000 in revenue. We actually grew over the previous year, but we fell short of our expectation.
Yeah.
Final budget.
It's just within that budget figure. If you
Yeah.
go to page 74, we actually have a table back here that shows you, or excuse me, page 75. This shows you
Yep.
by year what your property tax, what the levy was and what was collected. So for you guys, like that first column, your total tax levy was $500,000. You collected 496,000 of it. So I mean that's 99.22% of your levy collected.
Job treasurer.
So I mean what was back on the other page is probably something within
It's
that
an
budget
anomaly that-
appropriation
it's an
number.
anomaly
But
where
no,
we get
this
an
is a strong
appropriation.
collection figure, and you even collected also some delinquent amounts, so about $11,000. So.
Excellent. Excellent.
At 99.22% sounds better than $22,000.
Right,
Sounds
right.
a lot better.
Excellent.
Well,
Right, and also, and that concludes the pages that I wanted to go over in the report. I know last year I had a separate management letter to talk to you about. I do not have one of those this year, which is a great thing. That the folks here were able to implement those items that we talked about last year. I think purchasing policy was one, and no, that's all I had to go over with you guys tonight. But I'd be glad to answer any other questions that you have.
Well, one of the things that I'm chairman of the finance committee, one of the things that we tried to do was try not to elevate revenues to pay for things, and this audit shows that we did a fairly good job of estimating revenues. And
You know, that sounds right to me. I mean, from my recollection, I mean, it's been a couple months since I was looking at these numbers, but yeah, I would say yeah.
but this
from
is a
looking at it right here.
pretty fun audit compared to the first one I sat here 8 years ago.
Well, I wasn't here around for that, but from what I've heard, yeah, there's been, I mean, vast.
We used to receive audits in May.
Right.
That happened several times.
I don't know that we've ever been presenting an
We
audit
used to do the presentation in January.
this early. So.
This is great. I got to go back to one page. I'm going to leave you alone. I'm just curious, a lot of curiosity. Page 11. I always want to make sure I get this number right because town manager and I battled about this in the past. It looks like reading on page 11 of the audit, the town of Blackstone last year, after a depreciation expense, we made $581,000 selling electricity. True or false? Now, that includes budget and depreciation, something we used to not do.
Right,
Because
yeah,
because we were trying to get everything, we weren't trying to cook the books, but we were trying to, am I right?
Yeah, your electric fund went up almost $600,000, and
We said water and sewer,
they were almost went up about $400,000.
we made
almost $1 million
$540,000.
in your enterprise fund.
We made $1.1 million selling electricity, water, and sewer last year, if I'm reading that right.
Yes, sir.
Be cautious of one thing.
I knew it was coming.
Be cautious of one thing. When we say, and I know the word profit was in vogue about 4 or 5 years ago, we also put $2 million in the bank over the past few years.
Absolutely.
So that's where these dollars are. We have, and we will, at the December council meeting, present to you, bank proposals for CDs or
Right.
investments and, Virginia Investment Pool and some of the other things we're looking at. $2 million undesignated cash. That's where it was.
Amen. Hey, listen,
We prefer operating income.
hats off to you,
Operating
town
income.
staff, and this finance committee, with whom we've locked horns before, but hey, I will say right now, having been mayor since 2006, I believe the town is in the strongest financial position it's been in the last 11 years. I feel pretty confident saying that. Still some mountains to climb. But listen, and I've been on the losing end of some arguments. Some of those arguments I was wrong on. I'll be the first to tell you. Well done. Well done.
I've been working on the audit for about 4 or 5 years, and I've seen improvement every year. So,
Any other questions? I didn't mean to hog the floor. Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming tonight.
thank you.
Be careful going back.
Absolutely.
Thank God.
Have a great Thanksgiving. Good to see you.
Have the council give them a round of appreciation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Very good. Thank you all. Feels like Christmas already. We also had second visitors, Mr. Wayman Mitchell. I believe he has a request for a turn lane on Northwest Avenue.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everybody.
All right.
I've been surveying the turn lane at Spring Hill, going into Spring Hill for about over a year now. My first report I got had to go, I said I was supposed to go to the county. I go to the county, they said go to VDOT. I go to VDOT, they said go to Phillips. You can laugh now.
They're right. It's in town.
So I called Philip and VDOT and the lady together, and I asked them about the drive again, and she said we had to come through the town because it's town property. So here I am. What projected was that this street runs from Nottoway Avenue all the way up there by going up to Spring Hill, which is northwest. Get it right, Northwest Avenue. And during that time, the speed limit comes from here out past Braddock? Buckrow Road. and it's 35 miles an hour going into there. Look at your chart and see what I'm talking about. All right. Now, once you get to the Reese Corporation and across the street over there to about, I guess another 100 yards or less, it goes into 45 miles an hour. Mind you, when people drive, you say 35, they're doing 40. All right. 45, they're doing 50. All right, look at the chart now. Next time it shows 55. That's before you get to Spring Hill. So by the time they get to Spring Hill, they're doing anywhere from 60 to 65. We come to church, we got to drive that strip, but we start breaking down at 45 because we got a sharp turn there. See where it turns and on the chart? And you almost come to 10, 15 miles an hour to slow down to make that turn. And these guys barreling 60 miles an hour, you know, they're hitting your tailgate and everything else, so it looks kind of dangerous. I'm surprised no accident happened yet. But we have a lot of people coming in and out of that driveway. And so that's why we're supposed to get the turn lanes in there.
You'd like a widening of the road to accommodate a turn lane, is that correct?
Right,
The one good thing about that, you do have high volume and you certainly have high speed. If someone's going to 460, once they pass the water tower, they're in 55 mode. I'm guilty of it myself. I can't wait to get to 4 lane. But you do have good sight distance there. That's probably why there've been no wrecks. There's lots of sight distance.
Yeah, well,
But I'll never argue against the turn lane. You'll never hear me argue against widening the street.
Mr. Mayor, is there room there for a turn lane?
Oh, I don't think there's enough pavement there for one by VDOT standards.
I think you'd have to acquire some right away. My personal opinion.
Because coming into Blackstone, where the sign is, welcome to Blackstone, that's wide right there.
It is.
Yeah, it's wide enough.
We're lowering that speed at that point down to 45 until after we pass Spring Hill Road. Will that alleviate the problem?
Probably not really.
Not unless there are police officers watching it, because like I said, once you get that mindset,
That ticket book will change a lot of minds.
it will on days of writing tickets, but
Yeah.
Sounds like an awful good project.
But
for
I'm saying,
street
why
light.
go through all that, we'll just put a turning lane and forget, not to worry about anything else.
Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to refer your request, and I think it's a good one, has some merit to the Street and Light Committee.
Right, okay,
That is Mr. Tucker's committee.
okay,
Is that Mr. Scott's committee? Mr. Tucker's committee. All right.
thank you. That's not all, Reverend
And
Warren.
we'll have a report next month.
Warren.
And our third visitor is Pastor Travis Warren.
We got a part two to this thing here.
All right. Very good. The more the merrier.
Thank you, thank you. We want to extend an invitation to the town council for the Thanksgiving luncheon this Thursday. We want to invite you out to that. But the part two portion that we're concerned with is we only have one entrance and exit to the church. We're having more and more events, more and more people coming, and I'm really afraid of a tree falling, accident, and we're all blocked in. I know years ago, I think it was a way to go over the railroad tracks, and I was thinking that if we could some kind of way have a temporary, it could be closed and only used for emergency exit to go across the track, it would make a difference. So that's what we wanted to talk about.
I'd like to also further same request, this request to the same committee, to the Street and Light Committee.
Okay.
You certainly have an active church, like last Wednesday night, it was packed for that security meeting, very good.
Yeah.
It's very good.
What time is the luncheon?
7 to 1.
11 to 1?
10:45.
10:45.
At Blackstone Primary,
Oh,
The
yes,
luncheon.
11 o'clock, 11 to 1.
11 to
Yes.
1.
At Blackstone Primary.
Yes.
I thought you had enough turkeys, but you're inviting us too, so we'll join the turkeys.
They would love to see
That's right. Thanks so much. Thank you, Pastor. Anyone else?
There's supposed to be a Miss Fuller here.
Ms. Fuller, D. Fuller? We'd love for you to come forward. There we go.
Hello, everyone. I actually had some flyers for that, so I thought I'd share. I am here representing Life Changing Community Development Corporation, and this is one of your centers out here in the area. So in December, we're having our end of the year luncheon, and we wanted to invite the community, our partners, and the council to come out and join us. I don't know if y'all were given a flyer, but I do have a flyer. It will be in Colonial Heights on December 9th from 1 to 4, and we're going to close out the year, share what we're doing for the upcoming year, and we just want our people to know we're here to support our community, to get ideas back from everyone to what we can do to help strengthen what we do in our organization, and for people to get to know us just as well, because we've been here a while, but we still feel people really don't know what we do over there in that building, right across from the baseball field. So we want to invite everyone, and hopefully you could come out and join.
Very good, very good.
If anyone would like a flyer,
What is the date of the event?
it's,
December 9th.
the date is going to be December 9th, and we're going to be doing it at Dante Pizza in Colonial Heights.
Okay. Very good.
Would y'all like a flyer?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Ms. Fuller.
I have more.
I'll scan it in there.
We'd love it if it were in Blackstone, but
Okay, thank you.
we will try to make an effort to be up there.
So what did you just say?
We'd love for it to have been in Blackstone.
Thank you, I'll pass that on to our board.
Thank you so much.
You gonna email us, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, I'll scan it and send it.
Thank you.
Anyone else tonight, before we get to this, to the meat of our agenda? There'll be a second opportunity later to speak. Yes, sir. Oh, good evening. All right. Howard Miller.
Come on, Howard, let's have a little
Mr. Miller,
something.
okay.
Come on, let's have a little something.
Well, members of council, you have your minutes before you. There are 3 sets.
Move to dispense with the reading of the minutes and approve of all 3.
Mr. Tucker has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? Even the called meeting had minutes. We appreciate that at the ribbon cutting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our fire chief, and he is well represented tonight. And Chief, we think about you. Again, sorry about your recent loss. Thinking about you.
Thank you. Nice, quick, easy report. The big things, we are having a fundraiser partnership with Nottoway County Sheriff's Office. All proceeds are going to be benefiting the Tanner family. That's going to be on the 16th. We just also heard a rumor that somebody's going to be cooking some Boston butts that day also. Nice. So it's going to be a bake sale, Brunswick stew, and Boston butt, hopefully, all at the fire department on the 16th of December. Trying to get some money for his children for Christmas. The invitations, I got excited and put last year's date on the Christmas banquet. So if you just pay attention, it's actually the 9th.
Got a correction in the mail today.
Corrections are in the mail.
I got it today.
You got yours today, good deal. So if you could please give Philip a call or let me know if you are able to be in attendance. The annual Edgar Johnson Memorial is right around the corner also, and that will be the 6th. Once again, Edgar's the only firefighter to lose his life in the line of duty for the town of Blackstone. And that was in 1962. We've been very fortunate. And that's all I have unless...
Congratulations on your anniversary in the department.
26 years.
Getting
Still a
old.
young man. I think you joined at like 19, so you're
14,
fine.
14.
14, oh my
Yep.
goodness. All right. Any questions of the chief? Thank you, Chief Tomer. We will look forward to that banquet. I think it's one of my top 3 favorite nights of the year. All righty, we have committee, payment of bills. Payment of bills, you have your first batch of bills totaling $560,125.52. These are checks not yet approved.
Move to approve.
Is there a second to Mr. Green's motion?
Second.
Mr. Nash, a second. Any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Green.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0. Your second batch totals $218,347.15, and these are segregated by department. These are the these bills to be paid.
Move to approve.
Mr. Scott has seconded Mr. Green's motion. Is there any question about any purchase? Hearing none, we'll start with a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Green.
Aye.
And that motion carries 7-0. We have several committee reports, and I'll ask if we can get through these as quickly as possible. There are quite a lot of recommendations. We will lead off with the, we have the Employment Committee, which I believe we hear a report tonight in closed session on the Employment Committee. All right. Then moving right along, we have the Street and Light Committee, which met on October 30th.
Mr. Tucker, as chairman, I'm going to ask 2 items not be discussed or brought up tonight simply because I did not invite the property owners to the meeting.
Okay.
And I feel remiss, but 10th Street right-of-way request, I'm asking that you not act on that
Okay.
recommendation. And also the College Avenue alley easement recommendation. I'm just not prepared. I have not done the work.
That's fine.
Contacted the folks. So.
Mayor, I move to table these 2 items until
Thank you.
next meeting.
Is there a second? Mr. Nash, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. They are tabled. With the report.
Would you like me to go, Mr. Tucker? Street closure.
And I want to make sure, well, I don't mind. I want to make sure Chief Tomer, we had some correspondence today on this first recommendation about street closures. I'm glad Chief Tomer's still here.
I think there was a recommendation that, and I had seen an email and some email traffic in regards, recommending acceptance of the mayor's recommendation to, which is to have street closures and donations seek taking place with the town manager and police chief. That's approval as long as council's notice 24 hours in advance. And that the gist of the recommendation?
That was, but I did receive some correspondence, I think we all did today, from the fire chief expressing some concerns that maybe, I don't want to, Chief Tomer, briefly, if you could just summarize what, you wanted more time than 24 hours.
I think 24 hours is really cutting it close for somebody, and especially planning for the police chief and town resources if you're gonna close a road. I certainly hope anybody that's seeking donations plans out a little bit further than 24 hours.
Well, just so you're clear, this is, council would be notified.
Within 24.
The chief and them may be planning longer than that, but I'd like to extend that 24 to 48 or even 72.
I think if the chief is being notified, we should be notified. I mean, to be honest, I think it should be a week or so in advance. I mean, I don't think 24 hours is pretty quick for someone to just come out, oh, let me start raising some money in the street.
I would say if people forget sometimes, some of these family reunions, some of these kinds of things are really last minute.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, we'd like to make a request. Well, we don't have another council meeting.
Right.
And I think that's as much of the gist. I don't think it's the fundraising thing. I think we all agree, if you can do a boot drive, probably a week ahead of time is reasonable. But sometimes these family reunions, or if there's a funeral, or something unforeseen, I think folks send us a letter, they ask correctly,
Right.
but we don't have a meeting scheduled.
Right. What do you think about that? I didn't want to throw a wrench in the recommendation, but I just
I'm
want
not
to be
comfortable
sure.
with 24 hours, I can tell you that.
24 is tight. How about 72? Can we go 72?
Yeah, you get 3 days notice, I would think.
3 days notice, fine.
Mr. Chairman, is that okay with you? 72 hours?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
We have a recommendation. A motion's been made and seconded by Mr. Nash. Mr. Green made the motion to go with 72 hours advance notification. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Speed limits.
If the committee tabled the issue, there was a discussion about a town-wide study to be able to drop those speed limits throughout town, except for Pickett Court down to 15. We've already done Pickett Court, and I think the committee looked at the gravity of the project, and they said, we're just gonna sit down on this right now.
Okay. Very good. Good old tree issue. Some of these
Ah.
hit close to home.
One is on High Street and Dinwiddie Avenue. It's literally a dead tree. And the recommendation, although we don't have a significant amount of utilities there, the recommendation from the committee was to cut the tree down below the utilities. And if you know which house I'm talking about, it's a significant dead tree right
Want to
there.
take each one of them or all of
I'd
them?
say take them as a lump, if that's okay with y'all. Take them together. College Road.
It is a dead tree. The top of it out.
When it's on, is it on private property?
It is on
When it's
private.
on private property, we don't do the whole 9 yards. We just, well, what the council's policy's been, if it's our tree on town property, we get rid of it. But when we're going on someone's private property, it's sort of a trade-off. Look, we're going on your property and kind of doing you a favor. We're also doing ourselves a favor. We're not gonna get the stump removed and all that expense to the taxpayers.
Top, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Certainly wouldn't hurt, would it? Very good
I
idea.
think mainly because the town's cutting the top of the tree out, correct?
Correct. dude.
We don't want to go into the private sector and compete, and that way get a tree service in there to do the remainder of it. I mean,
I'll talk to the property owner, certainly
Yeah.
before we.
Always
start
try to work out a deal where maybe you encourage them to hire someone to come in there after the fact. And then the good old tree, and I want to thank the town manager. You certainly preserved my political career. You certainly didn't cut too many limbs down, and you did a good job.
Is that the limbs you were talking
Yes,
about?
it was, but I was thinking that y'all might go crazy over there. Wouldn't have made me mad, but y'all, you did it right. You did it right.
Trees, in my opinion, you asked, and on the corner of
Yes.
Virginia and Brunswick, you asked, whose trees are they? In my personal, professional opinion, without a survey, they are the town's trees.
Right.
If you look at the distance behind the water meter.
Yes.
The water meter is a good indicator of property line. I believe those town-owned trees.
I think you got the limbs that were the most pressing need. I appreciate it. You did a great job.
That's fine.
they
The
were
guys did
definitely
it.
dead.
They were dying, definitely. Members of council, what's your pleasure? 3 recommendations. One's ex post facto, but ratified.
So moved.
Mr. Scott has moved and Mr. Tucker has seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Brown Street.
If you're coming up northbound on Brown Street between Church and 4th, there was an accident where a town vehicle was hit. The individual there was concerned about the fence that had been replaced and made somewhat taller. And I think the committee would like to know if I can get up with the property owner and see if we can modify that fence somewhat. I don't know if it's as grievous perhaps as the individual who caused the accident, but, and I don't know the ultimate end result in court. Was it a conviction or thrown out or? Thrown out. And I think the fence was part of the issue, so we're gonna talk to the property owner and,
Is it on town property?
I don't believe it's on town.
Well, if you go over there, it's,
Site distance issue.
if you're watching where you're going, you're not gonna have a.
Yeah, because the sign, I'm looking at this illustration in the packet, the stop sign, if you're coming in the South Brown Street, you can see the stop sign.
If you're coming northbound to the Church Street intersection.
Yes.
You can look to the right or to the left, but the individual assertion was that the fence was creating a site distance.
I think they're
Well,
saying if you're stopped at the
okay.
stop sign, you're behind the fence, so you really can't.
You've got to
see.
stick your neck out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. There's several like that.
I'll go talk to the property owner.
All right.
College and church.
Oh, the VMAX sign. And I'll tell you another one. This is a private property issue, and I love Mike Freeman, big fan of McDonald's. When you come out of McDonald's, and they're going to remodel, understand, I told Mike, I said, that sign telling you what the specials are, you really have to, if you're making a right turn, it's still hard.
It needs to be higher.
Yes, yes.
We had another one, there's a crepe myrtle at 2nd and Lunenburg. I did talk to the property manager and asked, and Dave's not here anymore, but the property manager was gonna contact Dave to see if that crepe myrtle could
Yep.
relocate.
Good
How about
observation.
that car on the corner up here? Did you think, you know what I'm talking
The car,
about?
no, I'll get the car.
Is the car, when you turn off,
We did get Oak Street and Irvin without too much trouble.
Excellent.
The property owners were very agreeable. They said, hey, yeah, we gotta cut some bushes down, so Jennifer got that taken care of at the same time.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, moving
Moving
on.
forward.
Mind him to.
Slurry
Seal
seal.
on tar and gravel, we had pre-bids and bids, opening dates. Slurry seal is in your packet for consideration, and and recommended for approval. Tar and gravel, nobody submitted a bid in a timely fashion. Shockingly, we received a bid that afternoon at 4 o'clock. We were closed on Friday, and FedEx was supposed to deliver on Friday. They delivered on Monday. The bid opening was 10. It was received at 3:50 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we did not receive a responsive bid, and so we have re-advertised the tar and gravel project for 2018. This is for
How many did you expect to receive bids from?
the two contractors that have done it the past 2 years. We had Whitehurst this year, and the year previous was
Is
Landco.
there any reason the second one did not respond?
They were the ones that did the paving on Nottoway Avenue for the contractor. So,
You have to rebid? I mean,
yeah, well, I didn't receive a responsive bid. And I can't just go out and just handpick one.
Right.
So we have rebid, and it's out to bid. I do have, I think the next page is, the committee recommended extending the contract with Colony Construction for another year. Colony, last year, received our asphalt patching. We have 3 types of road paving. We have slurry seal, which is what we did on Dinwiddie Avenue this past year. We have tar and gravel, which was much ballyhooed tar and gravel on
Oak Street, Lunenburg Avenue Extension, to name a few.
Mr. Hamner's district for the most part. And then we also have patching. We try to patch the bad spots before we seal over top of them. And Colony Construction in 2016 was the contractor of choice. They were the low bidder. And we did, in our specifications, said the sealed bid shall be for calendar year 17, which have expired. They've done the work for 17. They were just in town on 8th Street and Westwood Drive, and a couple of those spots. The town may extend the award for 2 additional years. If you choose to, you can extend it, and they will honor their price. And obviously, it won't go down, but it won't go up either.
Gotcha. Members of
is it
council,
a
what's,
reasonable price? I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
thought
fair. I move to approve, or to extend the award. Do you want it for 1 year, or do you go ahead and do?
I do 1 year, just 1 year
1
for
year.
now, and then see what happens for the next.
Mr. Nash has moved to extend for 1 year. Is there a second? Ms. Thompson, a second. Any further discussion? Ask for a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Green. All right, the motion carries 7-0. Quick question, and I should know this. The project on South Main Street,
The what?
the project on South Main Street, is that done? As far
It
as
is-
paving goes and all that?
As far as paving goes, I don't know of any other spots that need to be done, but it does need to have the striping put down.
Okay.
The property that Walker Richardson owns obviously needs a significant amount of cleanup.
Yes.
But as far as paving and such things, I think all the equipment left today, yeah.
It's funny, when I drive northbound, I felt it was rather smooth. When I drive southbound, there are a few places where I just hope the condition it's in now sustains itself. Because, I mean, I've been back in the paper for 30 years. I've taken so many pictures of, it's going to be smooth now. I mean, it's just, it's something every 4 or 5 years we're digging up South Main Street. But this was a sewer improvement. What are your thoughts?
I haven't been here 30 years, but South Main Street, if you guys have driven through there in wet or icy or bad conditions with leaves on the ground, water stands at the intersection of 4th and South Main Street. It just does it. I think the last time it was paved, it was concave rather than convex. And I think our intention was to put stormwater in. There was one drop inlet from Sea Park to my mother-in-law's house, and that was in front of Dick Allenson's. If you remember, there was one drop inlet there. There are now 4 drop inlets in that same stretch. Okay, so the intention is to try to get water moving, get it off the pavement, and to create a convex rather than concave in a slope. I can tell you we get a lot of traffic on that road too. I don't know what it was like before Arbortech, but it's a bunch of traffic on that road. I would say it's in excess of 10,000 cars per day. We hope that this is going to extend the life of the asphalt.
How do you feel? Just how do we feel about that? I know it took longer. I know it was a long project. It took about 2 or 3 months. Took about 3 months, but we feel good about the work that was done.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a road guy. I just want to.
This is one of the few projects, and I know there was some criticism before when we did the big sewer project about compaction, and there was a cost associated, and we didn't have cash in the town's coffers to cover some of the additional. This one had a full-time inspector, and this one also had materials testing full-time on property. Hurton Profit was on site.
There's someone to lean on if the road does fail.
If it fails, we come back and say, hey, guys, y'all did the compaction testing, you were a full-time inspector that we paid for, and VDOT paid for half, but
We've paid for a warranty in essence.
Bingo. There was always a warranty in there, but I can tell you what the warranty is when you put a sewer line in. Oh, it was bad dirt. Oh, it was bad. You gave us bad material to work with. There was no dirt put back in these holes. This was all stone put back in. There was no non-compactable material put back in. It was all crush and run put back in that trench. So there were some things that we did. The town apparently some years ago, 10 years ago, put in fiber optic lines there. I don't know if you knew that.
Are they gonna put the stop sign back into the sidewalk?
On 4th and Main? Yeah, it's lashed to the telephone pole right now. Yeah, it needs to be. And there's a grommet in the asphalt or in the concrete. It just needs to be stuck back in.
Briefly, yes, I saw Mr. Wayman Mitchell with a point.
Is 4th Street from Main Street, that 2 blocks going west, is that complete? Well, that's off of Earth Ride, isn't it?
4th Street?
Going from Main Street to 4th Street, like when we went to,
According to VMAC.
I don't think there was anything done to that road.
There's been no work there. It's been,
Yes, man. That might do it
I
right there.
think it's the same between Academy Avenue and Lunenburg Avenue. It is rough, but it's been like that for some time.
I don't think we made any worse.
Yeah, that's our way of cutting down speeders.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
What else do we have on the street and light?
I think we.
Thank you, Mr. Norbeck.
Slurry seals on farther down the agenda, is it not, Jennifer?
I thought you were talking about it already.
I think we have it on the agenda with the actual bid tab. We'll get to it.
Okay, I'm sorry. You were talking about it, so I thought you wanted to move.
All right. That takes care of street and light, I believe. Moving right along, let's see, we've got buildings, property, and cemetery. This is a big one.
All right, we finally have a cemetery policy to present to council. It's my understanding that Councilman Hamner has an addition he'd like to make.
Okay. Mr.
Excuse me, on page 2 of 2, you guys you better earn, you want a minimum cover of 1 foot of earth on the urn. And I think we ought to put the same thing on a vault, which a vault is required for a burial in the cemetery at a minimum of 1 foot of earth on the vault, because it takes a minimum of that for the grass to grow, especially during the dry summer seasons.
Okay.
That's not in there, so I think it ought to be put in there.
So would you add that to bullet number 11? Is that where you would add that to, Mr. Hamner?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so you want to add a minimum cover of 1 foot of earth over the vault. Okay. Just a question of Mr. Chairman. This policy that y'all worked tirelessly on this for months, is this for the entire cemetery wide?
No, sir.
All right, so when we tell our constituents it's for the new part of the cemetery, in layman's term, what's the new part of the cemetery?
The new part of the cemetery, if you look at the map, and I don't know if this is gonna make a lot of sense to everybody, but as you come in on 9th Street, everything on the left-hand side on that
The big field, so to speak, the big field.
area, plus if you go from Pine Street, if you go to the bottom of that field, all the way across, and then to the south, where we just put that road in going across the creek, that is, the numbered lots are considered the new section of the cemetery. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Williams. That's correct.
So basically, in layman's terms, the big field area on the left, that part, and then the back end of the cemetery. The back end, okay.
Everything from the west of Pine,
Okay.
and the east from this way, from Pine back to the beginning of the old part of the cemetery is the old part.
Are the rules about the flowers, and like I said, I talked to Mr. Green some about possibly delaying this, but if y'all ready to go on this night, I don't have a problem, but about the flowers, the rule about flowers and the length of time, that's only in this part of the cemetery? Is that also?
Specific to this part of the cemetery.
So.
But I can tell you, the old section of the cemetery, and I don't know why it's so pristine over there and we can't put any rules on it, but there's old foul-looking flowers, and I pick them up when we throw them out. I mean, we
Right.
don't leave terrible-looking flower arrangements over there either. But
Right.
the town's code does say that the town manager, the keeper of the cemetery, whoever that be, the keeper of the cemetery, is to determine when arrangements are no longer appealing or add to the attractiveness of the cemetery.
I mean, that is a good question. So, why would we have rules and stipulations on part of it and not
Because that's the way it's always been. I know that's a bad.
He's being honest.
But this policy was for the new section to start with, and I don't know the history, maybe Mr. Hammer can help us out a little bit on the history on why these original, because this is really, comes from an original template that was on the new section.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing, my concern is what Mr. Nash said. If I was starting the cemetery tomorrow, Billy's burial ground, I'd say that whatever the policy is, it's for everybody. But
And that's not, I mean, it's for the ease of the town too, I mean, because we don't want to.
Sure, you don't have to figure out, can I move this one or not that one?
Right.
Well, I think, the reason you got the difference in the old part, you got walls around, you got fence around, and the new part you can't, so you don't make people take up all the walls and stuff. I think that's the difference.
Okay. What about, I noticed also in the old cemetery, back in the older days, I mean, there's some people there that are buried with some pretty majestic monuments that are pretty tall. What if that happens in the new cemetery? What if somebody passes and the family wants to put a 12-foot, like a little mini Washington monument up like we've got out there? Is that allowed here?
No.
Okay, it's not?
No.
Okay.
Wait a minute, you got one family stone.
Yeah,
and
tell
you
my
can
family
use
that.
that as a family stone.
It doesn't have a specification for the family stone,
That's correct.
for the
That's
size.
right, no specification.
You only get one though,
Right.
the number, but if you want to have an obelisk or something, you can do that.
Okay. Like I said, y'all done the hard work on it, so I'm not gonna sit here and cherry pick it.
I mean, this was a beast that couldn't be killed.
Exactly. I mean, y'all been through it. What is your pleasure? You got that one change that Mr. Hamner's recommended.
You know, when you and I talked about it, it's not a secret. When we talked about it, that I didn't mind having a hearing on it or whatever, but this man has forgotten more about this than I will ever learn.
Not really.
So, well, in my opinion, it is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I've got to take the lead on this. He said it's ready to go. He's ready to go. I move to approve it and adopt it.
Is there a second?
January 1st, 2018.
January 1st, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we'll give Mr. Hamner the second. Any discussion? Any members of council, you feel good about this?
How,
I would urge all of us, myself included, that not to really kind of talk this up. I think we need to,
there's a younger population that's been buried over there lately that obviously has got a lot of stuff around graves. I mean, how do we, it's a lot of finesse, and it's gonna be a hard job on you.
Well, with y'all's support, the teddy bears and the statues and all those kinds of things are intended to come out.
Are they grandfathered? They're not grandfathered?
No.
They weren't legal before.
But you're gonna have to go to them, do we call them prior to January 1? Or
I think we just have to send out a standard template letter, which we didn't get response from last time, and I'm just gonna have to start going through them.
Notify people prior to us going, oh, we're just gonna throw all your stuff away.
Well, I'd like to amend my motion if that's agreeable.
You may, we're not voting.
I would like to have this printed in the local paper, that as soon as you possibly can, in the appropriate font and size, and notifying the public that it will be, if we make the vote tonight, that that'll be the new policy and it'll be effect first of the year.
I guess I would make sure that was effective then.
Well, that's what I just said.
January 1st. All right, Mr. Green's amended his motion.
There will be a lot of appeals, I'm sure, to the council.
Grief is hard. Grief is hard when everything works in order. Grief is.
It is, and I'm very sympathetic of that. But it's also when you're over there trying to maintain the property, you're getting ridiculed because it's not clean and it's not proper. But you're also getting ridiculed because you got to make all these exceptions. I'm sorry. If we're going to have Lakeview look appropriate, that's what this committee labored on over 2 years to come up with this policy.
And I will say, of all the contacts I get with the people that contact me when they're usually the most passionate, it's either a light bill, but the cemetery, when someone is charged up at the cemetery, they are fully engaged. They are very charged up. And understandably, it's very sensitive.
And I hope they understand the town's not doing this to reprimand them or it's to beautify the spots that they own. Is what it's ultimately for.
Well, we don't want to have to keep people coming, technicalities and anguish and putting the 8 of us through, or putting the manager through grief because there's no cut and dry policy.
And I would ask this now. You said a word that can be toxic. Appeals. I would prefer this policy not have any appeals, because here's what's going to happen. this town manager, future town managers years from now, the minute someone they're gonna run to the council and all of us are gonna sit there and go, I grew up, that woman taught me in school. I can't make that family mad. You know, so I would say no appeals.
Well, and you just mentioned that give it back to them. We're not going to confiscate stuff. I mean, we'll tell them where it's at, and then they can pick up, I guess. If they don't.
Well, how do you codify that? How do you codify that? Because I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We're all guilty of it. If you come up there and call us an SOB or you cry, we'll do whatever you want. So how do you codify that?
You're gonna get appeals. I can tell you that, we've had some passionate ones about
Right.
locations recently. Right. People not really happy. We're gonna do the best we can.
Well, that's because there was no policy to.
But this council, there are several ordinances on the books that people don't like. I mean, we don't have people come to us and say, look, I want to park more than 2 hours, there are certain things that are not appealable. They can go to the judge and appeal it.
This is like every other ordinance we have. If it's a fair ordinance to begin with, it ought to be able to enforce equally across the board without feeling bad about it.
Right.
Now, I know that passions run very deep and grief is a terrible thing, and people get very close when you start talking about their loved ones. But this has to be something for everybody. And it's not unlike the other ordinance. If we make a rule and draw a line that this is as far as it goes either way, we ought not to be granting all these appeals.
I don't think they're just coming for us. My example, Mr. Moncur, is let's say there's someone that, they have to go to work a long way, so they want permission to drive 45 down Main Street because they have a long way to drive in the morning. We don't say, well, look, Mr. Smith can drive 45, don't ticket him. To me, the ordinance is you get in trouble when you allow appeals. I think this council should adopt this ordinance, and we got it. You got staff. That's what staff is for. When it keeps coming back here, we're human beings, and we're all, staff is better able to enforce. Then you make it appeals, it gets a battle between the Joneses and the Smiths, and then the constituents start saying, look, y'all are playing favorites.
I mean, the policy, the rules and regulations pretty much guide that as to what should be allowed. So, I mean, I think Philip ought to be able to.
And we'll do it sensitively, with sensitivity. I haven't had a child pass away. I don't know what that experience is like. I can only begin to fathom the depth of perhaps even the irrational emotions that are involved. I had no idea. Mr. Hammer told me one time, you can't make sense out of grief. When that person's grieving, there's not one way to do it or another way to do it. It's just the way they do it.
Right.
And
Well,
we'll do the best we can.
To best of my knowledge, and I think we started on this when you were on the committee, Mr. Nash. That's how long it's been. I'm telling you, to the best of my knowledge, the committee has done everything they can do to be fair and equitable. But, sometimes, and you've heard me say this many times, it's not easy to sit in this chair. Somebody's got to do it. We were elected to run the business of this town, and I feel like with Mr. Hammer's help, Mr. Nash's help, and President Thompson, we've done the best we can do, and we're ready to roll.
Your amended motion is to move forward with the ordinance to advertise it before January 1st to let the public know. Is there a second to Mr. Green's motion?
Yes.
Mr. McCure is seconded. Any further discussion? Any statement?
Real quick, the last sentence or the last bullet point on the first page, it says it applies to the entire cemetery, but yet we also know at the very top, the header says this applies only to blocks 1 through 20. So I want to make sure that that is clearly understood. That is for the new section, not I think the entire cemetery is probably the wrong verbiage. It needs to be for the entire new section.
Strike that. Where does it say the entire cemetery?
At the
Page 1,
bottom on page 1.
13.
But I thought that's what they agreed on was the entire thing.
The fee.
The fee, yes, but if you look at the top, it says it applies only to sections 1 through 20. So we either have to have one or the other, but not both.
Playing the role of the town attorney tonight. Good catch there.
I've read it, I've proofread it, and then standing here tonight, standing at the podium, I looked at it and said, whoa.
Excuse me.
One or the other needs to change, and if it's the intention to charge the $100 for everybody throughout the cemetery, that's fine, because we do need to try to cover our costs in the cemetery. We're not coming close.
If the town has costs, if you don't just have costs in the new cemetery, not the old part of the cemetery.
Correct, so we may need to differentiate that or take that off of the top.
Look at the third page. You remove 13 and make it a separate.
That the fee structure applies, the $100 burial fee applies to everybody.
Mr. Green's motion that's still in progress includes deleting item 13 and placing that on our own separate page to state that covers the entire cemetery starting January 1st.
That's correct.
All right?
I've never had a motion in progress. It's pretty cool.
It's a living, breathing motion.
Pretty cool.
Mr. Mercurian, second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Whoever?
Yes.
As far as the way it's worded about placing flowers, explain that whole restriction. What is and what is not allowed?
I'll read it very carefully and make sure everybody understands.
Let me finish one thing, though. We did have 7 ayes. Anybody opposed? All right, that motion is passed. Explanation, that's fine. That's okay, that's okay. That's okay.
So everybody knows, no growing flowers, ivy, trees, or shrubs may be planted on lot. Pretty self-explanatory. Only fresh cut and potted plants, as well as artificial designs, may be placed temporarily and shall be removed no later than 30 days following internment.
So keep reading.
Bless you.
One arrangement per grave will be allowed on Easter Sunday, Mother's Day, Memorial Day, Father's Day, and Christmas, 3 days before and 1 week after, with all arrangements removed by March 1st of every year. So you get 30 days after internment, okay? And Christmas Day is coming. You can go 3 days before Christmas, and a week after Christmas, it's supposed to come up.
So if it's not seasonal or upon burial, it's not allowed. Is that what that means?
Yeah, Philip, they're already in the old section. Families have already put Christmas stuff out.
Oh, sure. Old section.
That's the old section.
Old section.
That's, we're gonna get, the only, like I said, the disparity between old and new may catch us, but again, council, the committees,
So you have 30 days once they're buried,
Mhm.
and then only the 55 or so.
If it's not seasonal or following the internment,
That's why I was asking, because I know us as a family, we're all about when it's birthday time, when it's, you know.
it's supposed to follow these, we don't make it 365 days a year. In an attempt to keep things, I've got a pickup truck right now, parked in the back parking lot, full of Christmas stuff from last year.
Right.
It's still out there, Christmas decorations and things. So we need to create some parameters. Are these the perfect parameters? I don't know. We may have to tweak this at some point and go back to committee when we find out there's an upheaval and this is not satisfactory. But as what we've come up with, looking at other policies from cemeteries and crew and rice and everywhere else, this is the best we've come up with so far.
and then, very good. Thank you, everybody, for that, and we've got several more recommendations. Our Veterans Day Committee,
Mr. Mayor.
yes, ma'am, yes,
I
sir.
would like to make one recommendation, not a motion at all, just a recommendation. If a person or family buys a lot out there in the cemetery, they get a copy of these.
We'll have them sign for a copy now, stating I've received a copy of the policy.
Great, Mr. Hamner, excellent point, excellent point. Very good. The Veterans Day Committee, y'all did get my correspondence. John Listman, he's a military historian, wants to be added to that committee.
Well, we created quite a panic with some of the committee members. They thought, man, we've only got a few days to get this thing together. And we realized that indeed it's 2018.
Be the 100th anniversary of Veterans Day.
I did forward the email to Yvonne.
Beautiful.
Who is on the committee.
Excellent, excellent. All right, moving along, Mr. Green, Chairman Green, or Mr. Vernobeck, either one.
Go ahead, Mr. Manager, I'm having difficulty here.
There's American Evolution. I must say that we were in a little bit of a hurry that day, so we just tabled the issue. Bon Secours renewal, we can discuss it, but it's not positive news. I don't remember the terms and conditions, but you can see that Bon Secours offered us a lease at $22.50 a square foot for an additional 5 years. That was not an issue so much for the council or the committee. The issue arose when they wanted a commission to be paid from that amount to CB Rich Ellis.
To their real estate guy.
To the real estate guy. So we asked them to reconsider. They reconsidered and called me back and said, oh, by the way, have you read the lease closely? And I said, no, I haven't read it closely. I was going on $22.50. It's really $2.50 by the lease for the next 5-year term. And I don't know if you remember it or
No, I'll be honest with you. I had somebody call me over the weekend, and I will tell you, when you go back in time, in your time capsule, 2006, when Bon Secours invited us to the Bonefish Grill and tell us they were they were leaving the medical center and going to have one doctor at the shopping center, and the late Larry Palmer, to his full credit, came up with the idea through CDBG to try to keep our medical center, and I think it was a great decision. None of us at the time were worried about after the renewal. We wanted to get the medical center up and running. But what you're saying is, instead of looking at maybe $18,000 a month, we're looking at about $2,200.
Instead of $219,000 a year, we're gonna get $24,000 a year.
And that makes sense. You think about it, that's fair market rent. Isn't it?
I think the 250 is a little on the
That's
low
still cheap.
side.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna end up with is if they exercise 10 years worth of it, we're gonna have a 20-year-old building in need of a lot of repairs.
Well, it's a 5-year renewal now.
Yeah, but
They
there'll
have
be
two,
two
they have
more.
an option
It's
for
already
two.
past 10 years.
But no one's making it, but also, no one's making the town renew as well.
You don't have to.
We have liberty here. We have some flexibility. Now, no one wants to run the medical center out of town. I mean, you can say what you want to, but I can tell you now, when you're really, really sick, and I've had good experiences there.
We discussed it in committee, and Jennifer said we're averaging about $18,000 a year in maintenance there, and so you figure 24,000.
Including liability insurance.
Yeah, that's
Then we
including
gotta tweak
liability.
that up. To make, we gotta,
Yeah, we
Well,
need,
got-
if we can
to
make
be honest with you, this is
24,000 a
premature.
year.
The finance committee is taking this
all right,
up.
y'all keep on going in.
And we really, this is
But the good news is we're talking about it so far in advance and not a year from now when it's crunch time. So I commend the committee for taking it on. We'll keep on negotiating and good luck.
All right, I'll try to carry on.
Carries Museum.
Carriage Museum, the DBI had contacted me, and we had talked about the landscaping at the Carriage Museum, and time was of essence for two reasons. This is the time of year to do the planting of those type of things. Mr. Nash will certainly be able to bail me out here if I get over the line. But also, we wanted to get the landscaping done around the museum. We have quite a bit of traffic at Bevel's and at both the museums. So we need to get this work done. So I asked their executive director to get some low bids, and I would come to council with it. And he did, and one of the bidders was unresponsive. One bidder was not quite as detailed as we would like. And what we did was, we asked all three to resubmit, and Clay's Landscaping had the low bid, and it was a very specific bid. I called the mayor after the committee thought it would be fine to go ahead. After discussing this with the town manager, the manager thought it was well within his purview as maintenance. I called the mayor just to get a second opinion, and he thought that it would be fine, and we'd move forward. So we're just telling you that it's about $500 and some worth of landscaping that Clay's Landscaping is going to be performing. This is just a heads up. It was budgeted under maintenance.